page 10, module 2 and part 2 of the lesson. Now remember, as we ended our first module of audio module, it was that he had found a letter and the date of the letter on it mentioned December 26, 1914. So now here the narrator is reading the letter. Dearest Connie, I write to you in a much happier frame of mind because something wonderful has just happened that I must tell you about at once. We were all standing in our trenches yesterday morning, Christmas morning. It was crisp and quiet all about, as beautiful a morning as I've ever seen, as cold and frosty as a Christmas morning should be. So now here, this is the letter the narrator is reading, and then he sees that it was addressed Dear Connie. So Connie happens to be a lady's name. So here, at the end of the letter, we'll come to know that it was written by Jim McPherson. Okay, so now here Jim is writing that he is in a very happy frame of mind because something wonderful had just happened. And then he says that, and he was all very eager to share it with his wife. And he goes on to tell that we were all standing in our trenches. So now here trenches, if you look at the meaning that is given there side, it is long deep ditches that are dug out in the ground where the soldiers hide from their enemies at the time of war. So here he says, so now this is actually, I told you, now this story is taking place in a war zone where two countries are at war, that is England and Germany. Okay, and on a festive day like Christmas also, war has no time for festivities and celebration. On war goes on any part of the day or any day of the year or any season. It has no set rules. So here he goes on to say that even on a day like Christmas also, these soldiers were at war, or the countries were at war with one another. And he says, like any other Christmas day, it was a white Christmas. It was snowing and it was frosty. It was very cold outside. Next paragraph. I should like to be able to say that we began it. But the truth, I'm afraid to say, is that Fitz began it. First, someone saw a white flag waving from the trenches opposite. Then they were calling out to us from across no man's land, Happy Christmas, Tommy, Happy Christmas. When we had got over the surprise, some of us shouted back, Same to you, Fitz, same to you. I thought that would be that. We all did, but then suddenly one of them was up there in his great coat and waving a white flag. Don't shoot, lads, someone shouted, and no one did. Then there was another Fitz up on the parapet, another one. Keep your heads down, I told the men. It's a trick, but it wasn't. So now remember, this is a war zone, and soldiers are at war. Two countries are at war. Two enemy soldiers are at war. A group of soldiers are at war. So he says now, or even on a day like Christmas also, they were fighting. But I should be able to tell you that we began it. So he says that even on a day like Christmas, we means now this Jim McPherson happens to be from the British side. That means he was an English soldier, and the other country were the Germans. Okay, but the truth, I'm afraid to say, is that the Fitz began it. Now Fitz is nothing but a term that is used to address the German soldiers. Okay, the German soldiers. Someone saw a white flag waving from the trenches opposite. So here he says that the English soldiers sitting in their trenches, the scene that they were observing from their side was that they could see that from the opposite side somebody was waving a white flag. Now I think so, children, all of you know what is a significance of a white flag when two countries are at war? It means that that for the time being we will be quiet and there will not be war. It is just like a retreat. It is momentarily. For the time being there will not be war. And then from that side, from across no man's land. Now I wonder whether you know what is this no man's land. Now actually, now each country has their borders, and if you are lucky enough, you may have observed, if you were able to physically go to the borders and see how two different countries are partitioned, you will see that there is marking, and borders, fence, and the fence is there that demarcates our border. So like if you are talking about India and Pakistan, or India and China, or the countries with which we share our borders, you will know that our part of our country is demarcated by the fencing that is there at the border, and even the other country on the other side also will be marking their borders with a fence. But in between these two fences there is a certain area that does not belong to either of the two countries, and this area is called the no man's land. Okay, now if you are observant enough, in this advertisement that comes on the TV regarding the fog advertisement, that the spray, the fog spray advertisement, like there is an advertisement of the two soldiers standing on either sides of the fence, and they're asking what is happening, kya chal raha hai, in Hindi, if you have seen this advertisement. So you must have noticed that there is a certain a blank portion, there is an empty space in between the fence of both the countries, so that part is called as no man's land. Okay, and so now from across the no man's land, that means from the other side border, happy Christmas Tommy, happy Christmas. Now here, happy Christmas Tommy. Now the word Tommy here is not that the soldiers knew each other by their names. This was one a general common name that they used to address the English soldiers. Okay, just as how Fitz was a term that was used to address the German soldiers, so in the same way the German soldiers used the word Tommy to address all the British soldiers. When we had got over our surprise, some of us shouted back, "Same to you, Fitz, same to you." So now they were surprised hearing, happy Christmas being said by their enemy soldiers. So then it took a time for them to register what is happening, and so they also retaliated by wishing them back, "Same to you." Okay, we all did. Then suddenly one of them was up in his great suit and waving a white flag. "Don't shoot, lads," someone shouted, and no one did. Then there was another Fitz up on the parapet, and another. "Keep your heads down," I told the men. It's a trick, but it wasn't. So he says that when initially both of them exchanged these greetings, they also observed that these British soldiers were in their hiding positions in their trenches. They observed that one of the German soldiers was he came out from his hiding position, and then he says that and see how they are distinguishing each other by the color of their clothes. Grey greatcoat. So the Germans were dressed in grey, and that person who came out from his hiding place, he was already having a white flag in his hand. And then he saw when one person came out, another person also came out, and he was walking on the parapet, that means close to the edge of the boundary of the border of that country. Then another third person also came up. So now the British person who was in command here, he at once commanded his soldiers that keep your heads down. I told the men it's a trick. So when you are at war, you may not even realize when another person is lending you a helping hand, or is stretching out his hands for a truce. So now here this person, the person who was commanding them, he thought that okay, this may be one of the tricks in tricking them into surrendering. So he says that it's a trick. So be cautious, stay alert, and watch their movements. But he says, but that it wasn't a trick. One of the Germans was waving a bottle above his head. It is Christmas Day, Tommy. We have schnapps. We have sausage. We meet you. Yes. By this time, there were dozens of them walking towards us across no man's land, not a rifle between them. Little Private Morris was the first up. Come on, boys. What are we waiting for? And then there was no stopping them. I was the officer. I should have stopped them there and then, I suppose. But the truth is that it never occurred to me that I should. All along their line and ours, I could see men walking slowly towards one another, grey coats, khaki coats meeting in the middle. And I was one of them. I was part of this. In the middle of the war, we were making peace. So now here he says that he saw the soldiers, all the German soldiers, one by one, coming out from their hiding places, and then one of them was shouting that it's Christmas Day, Tommy, and we have schnapps. Now if you look at the meaning, that is a German drink which is made out of grains. And then he started telling them, we have schnapps, we have got something to drink, we have got sausage to eat, we meet you, we are coming to meet you. Yes. So in their broken English, they are trying to convey the message. By this time, there were dozens of them walking towards us across no man's land. So I say, as one person there started moving, slowly all of them also started coming out from their hiding places, and all of them were walking towards our border. And he also noticed that there was not a rifle between. None of them were carrying their guns. Little Private Morris was the first up. Come on, boys, what are we waiting for? And then there was no stopping them. So he says that when this person, Private Morris, he saw the German soldiers have already started walking towards the border. So he also jumped out from his hiding place, and he told, why are we hiding here? What are we waiting for? Come on, let's go. And then there was nobody to stop them, though the commanding officer was with them, but he was unable to do it. But the truth, it never occurred to me that I should. So he says that he was altogether in such a state of delusion that he did not know what was happening, and he did not know that it was he who was a commanding officer, and he had to give the commands. But then he was unable to do it because he was just surprised at the events, at the turn of the events that was happening there. And then all along their line and ours, I could see men walking slowly towards each other, grey coats, khaki coats meeting in the middle. So this commanding officer, all he could see was a grey line of coats coming from that side, and from this side where he was there, he could see uniformed men in khaki coats walking and meeting in the middle. And then in the middle of the war, we were making peace. So here he goes on to say that it was actually war, but on this particular day, they had just left their guns behind, and both the soldiers on either side of their boundary were facing each other, and they were greeting each other because it happened to be a festival, a day of happiness and peace, and they just wanted to celebrate it in that manner, not with guns and killings and guns and killings. And you can't say murder, it is here killings. Okay, so children, I will stop my second module here.